from my childhood in the Soviet Union with my grandparents. We were staying at this place with cabins and woods, and I remember my grandparents and I picking wild mushrooms, and then my grandmother was sauteing them and making them into these mushroom sandwiches, and there was a line out the door from our cabin of people waiting to get one of these mushroom sandwiches. And I share this with you to make sure I don't sound completely crazy that a few years ago, while walking on a trail in Westfield with my mother, she decided to pick wild mushrooms. I thought this was perfectly okay. So it started out quite normal. We were in West Bloomfield. There's a really lovely loop. I wish I could remember the name. It would make a lot of sense at this point in the story. And anyways, so my mom saw this mushroom. She was positive she recognized it. She takes it home, and she's like, yeah, come over for dinner. I'm like, yeah, I'm coming over for dinner. So I came over, and like my favorite dish, this is like what happens when you come from the Soviet Union. You have these like favorite, really simple, like home cooking dishes. You literally like saute onions and potatoes and mushrooms, and like that's the dish, and it's delicious, and like you smell it and you're like salivating, or I am at least. So I come over to her house, and she's like, yeah, I made like a saute pan full of these like mushroom, potato, onion concoction. Do you want some? And I was like, yeah, I want some. So we have this lovely dinner. My stepfather, meanwhile, is like super skeptical because he's an engineer, so he like thinks that way, like a couple steps ahead. He's like, I might be driving these two to the ER. That stuff comes later. So I have a lovely dinner. I go back to my apartment. I lived in Southfield at the time. Watch some show on my iPad. Everything is hunky-dory. And then it's not. And then I feel my stomach churn. And I'm the kind of person, like, I don't drink a lot. I'm probably like not a great person to have at a bar. But that said, if I'm throwing up, like, it's an emergency. So here I am in the bathroom, like on all fours, just like so sick. And I'm like, and I'm not really connecting the dots that it could have been the mushroom, but I am like a little kid, and I'm like, I want my mom. Like, so I call my mom, and she's like, I was just about to call you because my stepfather already has her like en route to Beaumont and Royal Oak because she's been throwing up too. And like, it's like non-stop throwing up. Sorry for all of you that just ate. But I like literally cannot go from my apartment to the vehicle without carrying a bag with me. So it was like the nastiest car ride. Like, you think about passing things back and forth, that's not what you want to pass back and forth with your mom because you're both so sick. And we get to the ER, and like the lady, like, you know, we get separated because I'm an adult, and I'm being asked like what happened, and I'm trying to explain to an American that I like picked mushrooms with my mom and we ate them, and they're like, if you were under 18, I would be calling Child Protective Services right now. So we get different ER doctors, and my doctor is very resourceful. Like, he wants to know what kind of mushroom I have. I'm like, I don't know. So he gets out like an iPad, and he's like, here, point to the picture of what kind of mushroom we had. Like, I don't know. But I'm so sick, and like they have me on an IV because I'm like losing fluids left and right. And finally, like, I guess they've got this like finite period of time during which they're gonna figure out if you're gonna live or die, or like if it's gonna get a lot worse, or if you're like in the clear. So they can't let us go home. So I get taken finally upstairs to a room. I get put into like you know how the rooms are, like it's got the division of the curtain in the middle. So I get the window, and then there's a curtain. There's no one next to me. And it's finally quiet, and I'm so tired because like my body has just been through hell, you know? And it's nice and peaceful. And then the patient gets wheeled into the room into like the second half, and she's just loud and just like so difficult. And I'm listening to this voice, and I'm like, Mom? Because like, let me tell you something about my mother. This woman will not calm down. Like, she is so, I'm 37, she had me when she was 25, do the math, the woman's in her 60s. She kicks ass at kickboxing, like on a regular basis. Like, she's super athletic. She does not want to be in the hospital bed. But like, she calms down when she knows that we're in the same room together, and they pull the curtain away. I'm like, I am fine. I've got my phone, it still has some battery life. I'm watching Scandal episodes. My mother is like, get us checked out of here. I do not want to be here another minute. There's no reason for this. We're not throwing up anymore. And meanwhile, my IV is making me like inflate, like the blueberry girl from Willy Wonka. Like they're getting way too much liquid in me. My mother's IV is not being monitored, so her blood is going into the IV. It was a fucking hot mess. But like they wouldn't let us leave until our primary doctor, this is the last day this doctor was my doctor, would check us out of the hospital because she's like, I don't know, she has to show up. So eventually she sent her like medical assistant in to be like, all clear, go home. And I know it's hard to believe, but I still love wild mushrooms. Except now I pick them at Costco. Thank you.